Good day, Happy New Year, and welcome to this special edition of Spotlight we call GM's Corner, a regular series of short conversations with LMOA General Manager Steve Hurwitz about what's on his agenda and what's on his mind. Good morning, and Happy New Year to you, sir.
Happy New Year to you, Ron.
Well, thank you.
Great to be back here with you.
Isn't it, though? Well, here it is, a new year, a new decade, new management at Food and Beverage. It's big doings. Just to recap a moment, when last year, when we left our hero, was the old radio expression, but last year it became apparent that the Food and Beverage operation was a wash in red ink. Audit Committee, our member Audit Committee, came in, did a real fine analysis, a lot of recommendations which the board of directors adopted. We shuttered Ashlon weekend dinners no more. Breakfasts at the pub were curtailed except for some special groups, and menus revived, inventory and all of that. And then toward the end of the year, Food and Beverage manager Andrew Kerper announced that he was leaving for another position he couldn't refuse to offer. So on he went. So then what happened, or what was happening?
Well, given all that, and that's a real accurate account of all the events leading up to the change that has occurred and is occurring right now. One of the things the Audit Committee pointed out is the difficulty of providing the overall management for F&B within an HOA, our HOA in particular, the Lake Monticello Owners Association. They pointed out that may have always been a challenge all along. And then we had the rather startling results, and in some cases people were not all that satisfied with the service itself on top of the financial performance. So we made those changes that you referred to in order to stabilize things, which we did. And I'm grateful for all the work that went into that, including our Food and Beverage manager, who has indeed got an offer he couldn't refuse. And we'll look forward to when he thinks that's okay to let people know, just where he's gone. It's kind of a private matter for him to let us know. But in any case, it gave us a chance with that change to say, well, how do we really want to manage this thing going forward, looking at all the lessons and experiences of the past, because it has been one thing after another, often success, then a dramatic change, then the new buildings, and a dramatic change in what we were offering and endeavoring to do. So with that, we took a deep breath and evaluated. We brought in a consultant who happened to be working on something else, the North Star software. That is another big story for this year, and that's moving along well. But he happens to be very experienced in this field, and he was another seasoned voice that said, there's another way to do this, than, which is to have a company do it for you, a third party. And then we didn't have to look very far to find a company that seemed to fit that mold, and there aren't many of them. So Billy Casper Golf was already here doing a superior job, a fantastic job of managing our golf course, the superintendent duties. And they, it turns out, are very big in the field of managing food and beverage, particularly in clubs, in associations, and at golf courses. That's right up their main alley. So we look like a perfect fit for that concept. We looked at we considered other companies that had been involved in that. This was mostly the staff, I'm talking about, doing this research, guided by the board, of course. We took a look at what had been available before when this idea came up a couple of years ago. And it turned out that Billy Casper Golf seemed like a good fit, and they were already here and doing a good job. So we started entertaining their proposals over a period of months. We went back and forth and worked with them on the proposals to tighten them up in terms of our operation and what made sense to us from a business standpoint. And we're finally able to conclude an arrangement right as the year was coming to a close. And but without even a pause, the idea was to keep operating. So we were closed on January 1st after the New Year's Eve party, which was a planned down day for food and beverage, and then open the next day.
Yeah.
So there's more to come, but that's a bit of the background.
Well, thank you, I'll get into a little bit of the detail. In the, and keeping in mind, you mentioned the history, and the history, of course, is that for years and years and years, Lake Monticello did through one of the volunteer committees, not named Food and Beverage at the time, but something akin thereto, ran our own operation and did manage to have maybe a couple of $100,000 on the wrong side of the balance sheet for years. And then, of course, we did lease Ashlon Grill there for a while, but then when it came to the entire renovation and renewal and the building of the new clubhouse at Bunker, that shut down for a while. We tried to get a third party. We remember guests sent out invitations to everybody who'd eaten a meal east of the Mississippi, and there were a few nibbles, but nobody took the bait. Nobody took the hook. Couldn't find anybody. So then we went back into the business ourselves, and so we find ourselves back again, even though the numbers were trending very well at the end of last year. But even at this point, as you say, time for a new look. And what kind of a contract is there with Billy Casper?
Well, they run the entire operation. All the employees are their employees, starting with the general manager and all the way down. And they have a model. They're very big in this business. They have a fully developed model with training standards and requirements that go into it. So they're putting those into place right now. Mm-hmm. And the arrangement is basically for them to run it. And it's the business end of the agreement is we have a budget goal, and if they beat that budget, in other words, if we do better than budgeted, there's an incentive clause for them, although the association benefits largely 85% of anything on the positive side accrues to the association, but that's an important part of it. So a lot of us, as we dug into it all the way, not just in the past few months, but going back when we first opened up Ashlon and the pub, there was a lot of feeling that they should be profitable, or at least shouldn't be as much a negative as they had been. And we stemmed the major losses, but still we're not on the profitable side. Right. Even as we ended the year, it's important to know that. We may not get there right away because you have to build up, but we're counting on the loyalty of the residents and other customers that we think really want to be able to come to not only the pub, but for special occasions, and in the long run, maybe even more than that, back to Ashlon. It's a great facility, beautiful location. And so there's no intention for that to go to waste. But from the business model, they're incentivized to do well, and we're incentivized to work with them to do our part in that.
Were any of our member committees involved in this process as it took shape?
Well, the Audit Committee was greatly involved, as you mentioned, with a recommendation, and they felt that the expertise, the basic trade knowledge in F&B wasn't really available within the context of the HOA, either in terms of committees or the staff. It wasn't a core expertise. So I would say that was the main impetus. We had an it was very fast moving, especially near the end, and we were very eager to get it in place, especially with the announced departure of our manager at the time. So we had a chance to brief the solicitations and contract review committee, as well as the board, and that was about the sum total.
Okay, the relatively new advisory committee on food and beverage, we'd mentioned them a couple of times, and did they have any role particularly?
Not directly in this. Yeah. Their charter focuses on marketing ideas and on collecting inputs from the wider audience, the customers, the members of the association, the residents. In fact, they're engaged in doing that right now. As you may know, there's the question was put out. We asked people to submit their New Year's wish for the pub, and those inputs are being accumulated.
Okay.
And on the 9th, they're going to be totaled up and turned over to the committee to take a look at and evaluate. So that committee really just got started as that decision was virtually in a meeting with the committee.
Okay.
And we're very grateful for the volunteers on that committee, and that's going to be a big help.
What happens to the staff we have had, the present staff, wait staff, et cetera?
Well, Billy Casper Golf went through a whole process. There was a formal meeting of the entire staff, the entire F&B staff, and they were provided information about how Billy Casper does these things, how they do the transition. That was on the 23rd of December. And then on the 30th and 31st, there were sessions where people were, it was kind of a departure day and then a onboarding day, where people were told, yes, you can, this kind of position's available, that kind of position. Here's what our benefits package is like. Here's how we do this. Here's how we do payroll. And then the great bulk of previous employees were in fact brought back. I can't give you an exact number, but it's somewhere in the area of 90%, plus or minus, of our employees are now Billy Casper Golf employees.
So while this transition is taking place from the people who've been the golf course greenskeepers to now the culinary greenskeepers, so to speak, we're open for business on the same schedule, and life goes on.
Same schedule, although I don't doubt that will change in time, but the idea was to not miss a beat. We were planned to be closed on January 1st, so that happened, but we opened for business on the 2nd. In fact, the most recent weekend was really quite good.
Oh, good.
People, we had people in. People were eating and enjoying the facility overall, as well as playing golf. We had some warmer weather. And a lot of the feedback was very positive on the spot, both to Billy Casper Golf, to other staff members and me. We heard good things. I know I had a chance to enjoy the fare that was delivered, including a delicious omelet. So, all the arrows are pointing in the right direction, but it's really just the first inning. All
right. Okay. Well, we look forward to good things, and it's been quite a challenge. Speaking, just switching gears, new policy also in effect where LMOA members who do not have or have not had in the past barcodes anyway, now required to show a photo ID for entrance either at the main gate or at Turkey Sag. So we've talked about that on urging people before, but now you got to pull out that wallet and show the photo ID. That came about?
Indeed. That was for a couple of reasons. One is it's within our policy. If you're in a category that should have, by virtue of being a resident, an owner, a resident living here, you should have a barcode on your vehicles. And if you don't, then you've always been required, but we just hadn't been rigorous in enforcing that, a photo ID. So we announced and did an awful lot of publicity that was going to start on January 1st. Indeed, it did. And, with some trepidation, because one of the main purposes of this was to keep from long lines forming and then backing up into the roadways from a safety standpoint as well as convenience.
Right.
Well, actually it went very well. So an awful lot of people did get barcodes in the run-up to January 1st. In fact, record-setting barcode sales before January 1st, and even since then. We're now a week into the new year, and we sold more barcodes in this past week than there aren't any records I can easily refer to, but I think we just set a world record for barcode sales after New Year's, in addition to the sales before then. The lines were manageable. We had a few spots where they got longer and backed up on the holidays, but our plan that we kick in when we have big days, which is there's a third work position at the main gate. We staff that on those busy days. If it's getting busy and backed up, we call for help to come in. that seemed to help and keep it, quite under control. There's another aspect to this too, which is this is one of the elements in which we're able to encourage people who are delinquent in payment of their dues.
Correct.
Their barcodes are turned off. So they're also supposed to show photo IDs, and they're in that category where we have been requiring that. The main purpose, again, is not to inconvenience them, but to encourage them to do their part like all the other members do.
Well, all right. Sounds like another problem solved, more or less. So that's good news. Excellent note, and actually more convenient for pretty much everybody all the way around. Well, thank you very much for bringing us up to date. You've been watching GM's Corner, the series of conversations semi-monthly with LMOA General Manager Steve Hurwitz. We hope you'll join us again for future sessions and also take in the full range of broadcasting brought to you by the LMOA Broadcast Group on your favorite channel 977, or of course up on YouTube. So take advantage of that. Tell your friends and neighbors and enemies. How about that? Well, meanwhile, until we see you again, on behalf of the broadcast group, I'm Ron Krause. Thanks very much for watching. Good day.